Okay, here we are back on the computer. Module 3, Writing for Dummies. We'll open the text first. And you'll notice this is divided into 3 different folders. First one is lectures and class notes. Lecture part 1, hopefully you've already seen that video. Part 2 is not showing up here at the moment because I'm actually recording it right now. Let's open this first one. Scientific Writing for a Popular Audience. This is from a writing lab at Duke University. And gives you a very rough outline of what it means and gives you some tips to look for when you're writing for a regular audience. Divest means to uninvest. Divest your language of as much scientific jargon as possible while still being true to the research. Remember, the average reader does not have an extensive scientific vocabulary, and overly specialized terms are likely to confuse the reader. By the way, when you're reading these articles and you find words you don't understand, just look them up online. Right? Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Replace the I of the scientist with the I of the writer. You're probably told many times in English 101 not to use the word I in an essay. I think that rule is nonsense personally, but you'll notice a lot of the writers in these articles do say I. Remember in Module 2 they didn't at all because it wasn't about them, it was about the science. Well, this is largely opposite. Okay, turn your narrative into a story. Make it dramatic. Alternate generalities with specifics. You'll see that happening. They'll talk about specific actions and specific people, and then maybe there'll be a few paragraphs of general science terms and things that'll bounce back and forth. Don't dumb down your writing. That's tricky. You have to explain to the general audience without making them sound like they're stupid or that you think they're stupid. Okay. Like being there. This is from actually a terrific website called the Open Notebook, which is really website about how science writers work. If you're interested at all in science writing, I would recommend bookmarking this. Okay, you'll notice the first thing you see is this big eyeball. Okay. So it tells you right away what makes good science writing for the general audience, and that is sensory information. Where are we here? Smell, touch, and taste. What about hearing? Smell. Anyway, so read through that. Pay close attention to this topic, this concept here called the ladder of abstraction. That's going to come up on one of the discussion boards. Very important for you to be aware of this when you do any writing in college. And then finally, Michelle Nijhuis searches for hopeful signs amid a back plague. This is really just an interview of her, asking her how she does her work. It does point specifically to one of the articles about scientists working, researching the white nose fungus that's killing all the bats in the United States at the moment. But more importantly, it does talk about her process and how she writes. Let's see. Okay, readings for the textual analysis. There are 4 of them listed. Choose one, just like on the last module. Read them all because they're all good, I think, but only one of them is going to be the basis of your textual analysis. 3 of them are from the textbook. Talk to Me by Tim Zimmerman is a pretty fun read about people going out, I think off the coast of Florida or somewhere near there for several days or weeks at a time on a boat to try to communicate with dolphins. It's fun. Polar Express is a neat story about a trip through the Arctic Ocean on a freighter, and it deals with the melting ice caps. Autism Inc. is about autism and how it's becoming such a flourishing, almost a business these days. So these are all from the book. There's Michelle Nijhuis's article, What is Killing the Bats? That came out at Smithsonian. This is a direct link. I'm pretty fond of this one myself. And of her. The more I see of her and read of her, there's several videos online of her being interviewed, and I think she's pretty neat. And this one, these are things I like to go over in class when I have a regular face-to-face class. Certainly they're not part of your textual analysis, so I'm not going to necessarily ask you to comment on them, but try to look at them. They're fun. This is science writing for the general audience. A lot of pop culture references in here. Searching the internet for evidence of time travelers. This is actually a couple of physicists did this. They're using Twitter for evidence of time travelers tweeting from the future. Why do people want to eat babies? I bet you didn't know they did. But when you think about it, if you've ever been to a baby shower or if there's a room, I'm going to sound a little bit sexist here. If you're in a room with a lot of women and someone comes in with a baby, one of the things you might hear is, "Oh, he's so cute, I want to eat him up," and people start gobbling on fingers and toes and that kinds of thing. So it's not as far-fetched as it sounds, and the scientists trying to explain what's going on here. This is a great example of how to get attention with a title. You know, it's important to get attention at the beginning of a paper, but the title is your first shot, right? Then we have some other pop culture stuff. Does Superman have emotional issues? He probably should. You know, he's probably got PTSD. These are all doctors writing about Superman. Beer tapping physics. If you're old enough to drink beer and you've ever been at a party and someone bops your bottle with another one, you know what happens. And believe it or not, it's the same reaction that causes a nuclear explosion. Then Pacific Rim. You may have seen that movie about the kaiju. And then 2 videos by Vsauce at YouTube. Could Godzilla exist? And then 3 Pokemon who could kill you. And they all use science and pop culture to get you to swallow the science, essentially. So those are the texts. The moment you've all been waiting for. The Module 3 analysis. Read the 3 articles about narrative science journalism in Module 3 text, lectures, and notes. Then choose one of them from the folder Module 3 text readings for the TA and compose a textual analysis which answers the following questions. Who are some of the characters? Remember, science journalism, it's all about the people. Who are some of the characters? How does the author describe them in order to make them come alive for the reader? I think I've mentioned there's one person in the bat story who has a little bat tattoo behind her ear, that kind of thing. In the article, Michelle Nyhouse searches for hopeful signs amid a back plague. She says one of the most important onstage roles, often the most important onstage role that the scientists play in a story is to demonstrate motivations and character. I tend to spend a lot of time lying in wait for those moments, noticing how people deal with problems, how they react to what they see, how they interact with each other. I think in other words, that's called impromptu moments. So can you find any scenes in the article you chose where you see this happening? What is the plot of the story? In other words, what are the characters trying to accomplish and what obstacles do they face? I got a nuisance call in the background here. Are there any spots where the author explicitly tries to explain complex concepts using everyday language, such as a simile? Hint, there probably are. And then, as Jody Madhusudanan wrote in Like Being There, memorable science stories captivate not only because they hold our intellectual attention, but also because they grab us by the senses, weaving smell, touch, and taste through abstract concepts. Are there any passages that make particularly good use of the 5 senses, or any of the 5 senses? And as usual, use a lot of quotes. You have to use evidence to back up anything you're saying, and see the file assignments and grading for details on how to format this thing and send it in. It's due at the end of the module, which is July 6th. Okay, then the discussion board. 3 of them. Okay, read those and post an answer to each of them. And please be sure to respond to other people too. This is a discussion, not just a monologue, okay? So please keep that in mind. Pretend you're sitting in a classroom and you're surrounded by people you like and people that like you, and you're having a nice conversation. That's the point. And finally, the blog. And I don't specifically grade on the use of the blog, but it is fun. Several people are using it, and it helps people to stay in touch with each other. So that's Module 3. I'm going to assume this one's going to be a little more enjoyable for you. The texts are easier to read. And if you have any questions, email me. And I'm working on grading the Module 2 assignments now, and all those grades should be up in the next day or so. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Okay, talk to you later.